Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're doing something really fun. We are going to summarize a great discussion using simple English, and then we're diving deep into the exact native nuance of a very specific, super useful word, debunk. If you've ever felt totally lost watching the news, or you just want to sound sharp and articulate when you're chatting about current events, you are in the right place. Let's get right into it. So why does news about our health always seem to change? I mean, we've all been there, right? The source material opens with this incredibly relatable problem. One day, you read an article claiming coffee is the ultimate health hack. You feel great drinking it. But then, you're left wondering if, 2 years from now, they're suddenly going to say it's terrible for you. They brought up a really spot-on example. Remember when everyone was saying red wine was amazing for your heart? People started drinking way more of it. But now, the medical community is basically saying, actually, scratch that, alcohol in general is just bad news. It is so hard to keep up. And that exact confusion is the perfect launchpad for us today.
Here is our quick roadmap for this explainer. 1. Simple English summary. 2. The nuance of debunk. 3. Similar native expressions. And 4. The future of truth.
All right, moving right along to Section 1, Simple English Summary. What is this whole discussion really about?
Basically, the core frustration is that health news changes all the time. The source points out that, when we were growing up, everything was all about the low-fat diet, right? But to make that low-fat food actually taste decent, companies pumped it full of fake sugars, weird additives, and chemicals that were, probably pretty dangerous. Now, the trend is totally flipped to high-fat diets being the healthy choice. It's literally a giant puzzle trying to figure out what's true. Because of all this back and forth, the host spends some time talking about the specific vocabulary we use to prove things false. And to top it all off, as the source highlights, this whole mess is just getting worse thanks to fake news and AI flooding the internet. Honestly, a very practical, very human reaction to all this chaos was perfectly summed up by one of the hosts. They said, "I try and stick with everything in moderation and hope for the best." And when the news constantly contradicts itself, sometimes taking things with a grain of salt and just sticking to fresh, clean food, like the host saw when they traveled to places like Italy, France, and Slovenia, is really the only logical response. But what happens when we can actually prove a piece of fake news wrong? That brings us to Section 2, the nuance of debunk. Let's unpack this native buzzword. First off, let's look at the literal definition, debunk, spelled D-E-B-U-N-K. It's a verb, and it simply means to show that something people previously believed to be true is actually completely false. Like you really thought it was a fact, but now hard evidence has stepped in and proven it's definitely not. But hey, just knowing the dictionary definition isn't enough for us, right? We really need to understand how native speakers actually feel when they drop this word into a conversation. So here is the absolutely crucial native nuance. As the source material points out, debunk is a massive buzzword right now. Honestly, it's just a fun word to say. It sounds punchy, it sounds impactful, it carries a lot of weight. The hosts describe it as feeling like you're dropping literal breaking news. It is not just a polite, quiet correction, oh no. It is a definitive, powerful statement that you are proving something wrong, whether that's some flashy new nutrition study or a massive internet rumor that spread like wildfire. So how do we actually use this in everyday conversation? Well, here are some common collocations, words that naturally pair up together, pulled straight from our source. You can debunk a myth, like the host who mentioned a professor debunking a myth from the 1800s. You can debunk a theory. You can debunk a common misconception, like the stuff about homeschooling or that low-fat diet trend we just talked about. You can debunk a rumor, or you can debunk a study. Notice a pattern here? All of these involve taking a wrecking ball to an idea that a ton of people thought was true. Let's look at a really concrete professional example from the source. The supervisor debunked the rumor that layoffs were going to happen next week. I mean, just imagine the stress in an office when everyone thinks they're about to lose their jobs. Panic mode, right? But then the supervisor steps in, addresses the false information head-on, and definitively proves it's totally incorrect. They didn't just casually deny it, they debunked it. This is a brilliant, practical way to use this word in your own workplace. Okay, moving to Section 3, similar native expressions. Let's expand that vocabulary toolkit of yours. Let's look at the subtle differences between a few related verbs. They're all kind of in the same ballpark, but they each have their own distinct flavor. We already know debunk, which is your go-to for myths and popular beliefs. Then we have disprove. The source uses the example of a professor disproving a report by pulling up a graph she recorded 3 years ago. This word heavily implies using hard, concrete data or evidence.
Next up is expose. This means to uncover or unleash information that was kept hidden. The example they gave was sharing secret photos to expose the hidden truth about a couple. Very dramatic. And finally, discredit. This one is often targeted directly at a person or a specific claim they made. The source talks about a scientist discrediting a reporter's claim by dragging her right into the lab to show her face-to-face exactly why she was wrong.
The hosts actually do this fantastic little role play where they pretend to be investigative reporters, and they drop this gem of a line. We need to be strategic about this if we really want to expose the truth. They talk about needing solid proof to discredit claims, so they can finally debunk everything that was said. Honestly, it sounds straight out of a movie script, but it perfectly shows how these words just naturally flow together when you're talking about getting to the bottom of a major story. All right, on to our final segment, Section 4, The Future of Truth, Media Literacy in the Modern Age. This all highlights a very real, very current world problem. On one side, we have traditional investigative reporting. The old school method of seeking facts, talking to reliable sources, doing the legwork. Sadly, the source notes that this kind of journalism is actually losing funding in the US. On the flip side, we have what the hosts call the Instagram age and talking heads. Instead of real, deep investigation, news networks are just bringing in loud personalities and podcasters who sit there and spout their opinions all night. People online are using these heavy, punchy phrases that sound super scientific, but they literally aren't based on facts at all. Fake news is just everywhere. So the really scary part? Debunking is getting harder and harder. How are you supposed to debunk something when you can't even trust your own eyes? The source highlights a terrifying reality. AI is moving incredibly fast. You might be watching a video online, and suddenly you notice a tiny little glitch, and it hits you. Wait a second, that doesn't actually look like her. That's not a real person. Sure, right now it might be a little glitchy, but in a few years, or even months, it is going to be near impossible to tell a real video from a deepfake. Which leaves us with this final, massive question to think about. In an era of deepfakes and fake news, how will you find the truth? When online debates about, well, anything, vaccines, politics, or even just what to eat for breakfast, are totally flooded with invalid sources, we have to be so careful. We have to actively look for actual proof, hard facts, and real numbers. I really hope this explainer has given you some simple English summaries, a perfect grasp on the nuance of the word debunk, and a fresh perspective on why media literacy is absolutely crucial right now. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and keep staying curious.
Got it! What's up? Catch up! Aha!